Welcome to the Intuitive Ascending Mind podcast with your host, Alia Yasmin Khan. Throughout this series, you'll learn how cultivating a growth mindset can unlock your true potential and impact every aspect of your life. Join Alia and her guest each episode as they dive deep into strategies for personal development and lasting transformation. Now, here's Alia.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Intuitive Ascending Mind podcast. Joining me on today's show is Martin Pytela. He is a metabolic typing advisor, and he is going to talk to us a little bit about what it means to make healthy choices in our food, in our lifestyle. Welcome to the show, Martin. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Alia. Thank you for having me on.
My pleasure. Martin, tell us a little bit about what brought you on this journey. Like what inspired this path for you?
Well, it's been a while now. It's about 45 years ago when I innocently walked into a dentist's office, still believing in science, still trusting the medical professionals. Anybody who has a white coat and a diploma on the wall is going to act in the best interest of the customer, won't they? And I was given a simple choice. Or you can get this white filling or the silver filling. And I said, is there any difference? And they said, not really, but the white fillings are different, are extra, and they don't last as long. So I thought, well, okay, then the silver fillings, I don't care what they look like. Little did I know that I was not doing full informed consent. That
They
was
were
the
missing
story.
information from
The
sharing.
silver filling was actually silver mercury amalgam filling, which mercury being the most toxic thing you can put in your body. And then there was my age 25, and then the descent into health problems began. And the first year, my carpal tunnel and plantar fasciitis and bad back, I mean seriously bad problems, couldn't work weeks on end. At some point I would be lying face down on my rocking chair, rolling over and crawling on all fours to the toilet because I couldn't walk. Like, that sort of debilitated. But those were just episodes, right? Like 3 weeks out of a year I was out of commission, or 3 weeks at a time. Anyway, the decline continued, and about 10 years in, I finally admitted to myself that all of the professionals that I have consulted with, orthopedic surgeon and chiropractor and naturopath and all kinds of esoteric stuff, I tried Bowen therapy and Alexander therapy and network chiropractic and blah, blah, I was going deep. And at the end, I finally decided there's just zero chance that these people will help me. I was working as a management consultant. In our practice, it's totally obvious that we ask any problem, what is the root cause of this? What is the cause of this? And it dawned on me that the medical professionals don't. What they do is they say, I have a symptom, I will treat it.
Yeah.
And it's a lot like a game of whack-a-mole where something pops up, you smash it down. But it pops up somewhere else. You smash that, it pops up somewhere else, and so on. So you're chasing symptoms instead of saying, but why is it here? So that was about my age 35 or so. I finally admitted to myself that it's up to me. And about 10 years later, I figured out what the problem was. I undid most of the damage, and by that time, I was ready to give up on management consulting and share what I've learned, because there was a lot of people like me broken thanks to the medical interventions. In fact, we now know that the third most numerous cause of death in the United States is medical practice.
Interesting. Wow.
Cancer, heart disease, cancer, and doctors. Doctors are more dangerous than guns.
I believe it. I've
Yeah.
I've seen it in so many individuals, and I try to have a very holistic approach, like figuring out what's going on in my mind that's actually kind of causing my symptoms, what's causing, whatever type of
Yeah.
discomfort I'm having. But such a pivotal point happened where you left one path and you walked down another path. What did that transition felt like?
Well, desperation is an incredible tool. Uh, at that point, I have moved my family to a small town because, again, we were living in a large city and my kids were 10 and 13 years old at that point, girls. And I didn't want them hanging out at the mall with all of the others.
Yeah.
It just did not feel good. So I said, let's give them the small town experience where everybody knows everybody and there are not thousands of others. And so we moved to a small town and there was no consulting for me to be consulting on. I had to become my own client and I built the Life Enthusiast business around that.
Okay. A very successful business, Life Enthusiast. Walk us through what the experience feels like for a client with you.
Right. Um, I have been developing the method over time. Since about 2012. I've been a metabolic typing advisor, which in general, you could think of me not as a doctor, but as a health engineer. I help people build health. I help them understand how they got to the situation that they find themselves in and how it can be undone. And so we ask four fundamental questions. Dealing with illness is having to resolve four categories of problems: stagnation, trauma, malnutrition, and toxicity. And each one of these, as a broad category, has to be resolved. Toxicity that's brought to us through the industrial age. The foods that were produced are made with herbicide, pesticide. The water is laced with things that shouldn't be there, and on and on. So all things that are already in the body that are toxic need to come out, and we need to stop the flow. So we need to clean up. And that involves air, water, food, furniture, clothing, makeup, all of that stuff that is in our immediate environment needs to be dealt with.
Sure.
Then the nutrition, again, the industrial food production is very efficient, but doesn't focus on nutrients. It focuses on visual appeal, shelf stability, and cost, lowering the cost. Well, so they grow food using NPK, that's the um, fertilizer, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. They make the food grow beautiful, strong, big, but fast. And with speed, you actually do not extract enough nutrients from the soil to make the food nutritionally rich. So it looks great, tastes okay, but is actually hollow from a chemical perspective.
Sure. Plus, they put sugar on everything.
Okay, yeah, that's food porn,
Yeah.
right? When you do that, you are now trying to seduce the mouth with the mouthfeel engineering, the crunch, the fat, the sweetness, all of that. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah, it's a sad world. We are seduced by the food engineers into eating things that are not really good for us.
Yeah.
Um, food that we eat mostly now is nutrient poor and calorie rich. So by the time we have gotten enough nutrients, we're fat, overweight, because the food is not feeding the body enough. It's just pushing energy.
Um, do you recommend growing your own garden, your own fruits, your own vegetables?
That's the most revolutionary act you can do. Liberate yourself from the system. Yes, if you can, right? It's hard for many of us. If you live in a urban setting, where do you put the garden? But yeah, if you can, absolutely grow your garden.
Yeah.
I hope that this will come back where back in the, I don't know, 1940s during the war, we had freedom gardens. It was promoted. We would dig up the front lawn and we would plant potatoes, or whatever, grow a garden. Yes, we should do that because you know what goes into that.
What are your thoughts on things that we label as organic?
It's better than not.
Okay.
One of the worst things that has come into the food stream is glyphosate. It's the commercial name is Roundup. It actually is an antibiotic. The way it kills the weed is by depriving it of its ability to extract nutrients from the soil. It actually kills the microbes that live at the roots of the plant that convert the minerals into something that the plant can use. So the plant starves. Well, what happens in a human body when you get glyphosate in, even in trace amounts, it starts killing off the microbiome that lives within us. And it's the same process. If I were a plant, my roots would be in my intestine. The villi that are in there, that's where the nutrients get brought in from the outside to inside of me. And the microbes that live at the root in the intestine, if you kill off the good ones, and glyphosate will do that for you, as will chlorinated water too. Anyway, when you damage the internal structures, you will not be able to absorb nutrients properly and you will be starving.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what are some things that we typically might ingest that we should look out for? Like just
No, no. Well, there are the 5 things nobody should ever eat, and that would be refined flour. The word refined tells you that stuff that should be in it, that nature would normally put into this food, is missing, has been taken away. And the reason it's been taken away is for the shelf stability, for reasons of industrial production, improving profits, not improving nutrition density. So refined flour, if it says enriched, it has been enriched in ways that you should not really want to have. Anyway, flour, sugar, salt, and plant seed oils. These are refined seed oils like sunflower, safflower, cottonseed, corn oil, all of those, especially when they have been made shelf stable by refining away all of the fragile, easily spoiled parts. So it still works as an oil, but it no longer works as nutrition.
right.
And the last part would be dairy. The pasteurized is problematic, but homogenized is really worse because when you make the fat globules small enough to make the milk homogenized, they are now small enough to actually get through the defenses in your body. So you will now have dairy products causing you trouble in the body. And then the biggest trouble is milk in general, and that's this. There are different species. We humans are more compatible with milk from sheep and goat and camel and donkey. And in cow, the southern breed, the buffalo, is much more compatible compared to the northern breed, like the Holstein and Jersey. And those are the ones that are more productive. So those are the ones that the industry is using for producing dairy. I had so many clients go tell me, well, when I go to India, I can eat all the paneer I want. I come back to America, I buy paneer, and it gives me inflammation.
Yeah.
And it's the type of the cow that's producing it
It's
that
the way that it's
the problem.
extracted. It's probably it's less processed.
Not that, no, it's actually there's a specific protein in the milk. It's casein, and it's different. They're like A1, A2, it's chemically different, and it just doesn't work. There are too many people who have the inability to deal with that. It just causes inflammatory symptoms. It breaks down the gut.
Yeah.
Mm.
Wow, that is a lot to like get out of your diet because it's like it's something that's just so like such a centerpiece. Like I think most
Yeah,
people grew up on milk and
and it's everything.
yeah.
So you asked the question you opened up with, should I eat organic?
Mhm.
Yes, you should eat organic, and you should watch what specific plants they're using. Like, for example, right now in America, wheat is treated with glyphosate, as our lentils, as our chickpeas. So the hummus that you buy, it must be organic, otherwise you're taking glyphosate. The lentils that you buy to make your dal, it should be organic, otherwise you're in trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's troublesome, really difficult.
Now, with regards to like enriched flour, like is it better to use like an almond flour? Is it better to use like a different type of flour? Does that make a difference?
Yeah. I had an experience back 2012, 13. I went on a trip to Italy. And by that time, I had lost my oral tolerance for wheat, meaning this: if I eat anything wheat in America, I break out, my face just goes completely messy,
I've had that.
which which is, I mean, some people have other symptoms, but for me, that was just very visible. Like I would just look diseased. And anyway, went on this trip to Italy, and it was unavoidable there. The pasta and bread and whatever, it's everywhere. So I thought, oh, well, it's just a few days. I will survive. So I started eating it, and nothing happened. So I asked my host, a naturopathic doctor, said, explain to me what's going on. And he says, oh, grano. We grow it differently in Italy. We have a regulation that the wheat is still the old school stuff that the Romans were using. So the wheat is not the short 18-inch wheat that we have in America. It's the tall wheat, and it's grown without herbicide, pesticide, and just the main difference is this: that the local producers are so proud that they have increased the protein in wheat to 12 and 13%. The Italian has 6. And the protein is actually gluten.
Oh,
Now you understand.
yeah.
People are overly consuming gluten and then becoming oversensitized to that. So anyway, you can go to Italy and have no problem.
That's interesting. My mother had celiac disease at a time when people didn't know this was an issue. Like it was in the 1990s. And when you mentioned the breakouts, I had that when I was a teenager and in my 20s. And when I did like an allergy test, and the doctor said, you're allergic to wheat. I cut it out of my diet, and then all of a sudden, like my skin cleared up, everything went better again. But I
Mhm.
was always aware that my mom had this and like to stay away from it. The flour that is, but I never thought about the way that it's processed. Like that's the reason why. Like it's the way that they are the added proteins to it that's causing that's
Well, they're not adding them. They have selected the grain to be different. Well, it's not a different species, but it's a different variety. It's been carefully selected for being different. It's different. It's a high protein wheat, and then of course now they're growing it with glyphosate, which means that it's also toxic. So it's a double problem.
So how do we cleanse our body of these types of things that are going in? How do we start to
Yeah.
detox from them?
When you find yourself in a hole, when you find yourself in a hole, you need to stop digging. So that problem is you need to stop the inflow of these bad chemicals. So as discussing wheat, well, move to a country where they don't use that grain and where they don't use those chemicals. Well, if you can do that, or else stop eating them locally, right? So that means changing your lifestyle. You have to ask questions. You have to insist. We as consumers have phenomenal power, and the power is in our wallets. Every dollar that you spend is like oxygen in the economy. Whatever you buy is like you're placing an order for it to be replaced. So if you are buying the toxic stuff and eating it, you're telling the producer to make more of it. When you buy the non-toxic stuff, you're asking that producer to make more of that. So we all collectively have the choice. We could easily clean up the entire economy if we started making better choices and forcing the producers to do the right thing. We just need to be educated enough and committed enough to our health to do that.
Right.
So yeah, most of us, of course, just like life insurance or like this. I know it's difficult to be selling umbrellas on a sunny day. It's difficult for me to be convincing a 25-year-old that they should not be eating things that are going to make them really ill 20 years later. They just don't have the time horizon or concern. But that's what it's about. We need to be making better choices.
And also, I think that these better quality foods needs to be more affordable as well, because for somebody that's in their 20s that's struggling to pay their bills to begin with, they're now starting out in the world like they're eating garbage pretty much.
Well, it's the pay me now or pay me later.
Right.
We do need to buy quality. I remember my mother back when was telling me we're not rich enough to buy cheap things.
I like that.
That's a really interesting metaphor. I mean, this was mainly back then related to clothing or shoes or whatever. We would not buy cheap things. We would buy quality things. And that's what the point is. We need to understand that quality matters. And once we have that perspective, and I have a business, it's called Exula. We manufacture superfood blends. We put together these superfood, the stuff you need to eat in order to compensate for the deficiencies of the food producers.
Are you tired of feeling stuck? Unable to reach your personal goals? Imagine unlocking the powerful duality of your mind to propel yourself towards success. With our mental duality guide, you can finally achieve the personal development you've always desired. This guide is not just another self-help book. It's a transformative resource designed to help you harness the hidden powers of your mind, guiding you through the building blocks to create a structured approach to goal setting and achievement. What's in it for you? Clarify your goals. Learn how to define what you truly want in life. Overcome mental blocks. Identify and dismantle the barriers holding you back. Boost your confidence. Develop a stronger belief in your ability to succeed. Achieve consistent progress. Implement strategies that keep you moving forward even when challenges arise. But how do I know this is real? Countless individuals have transformed their lives using our techniques. One user, after applying the principles from the guide, reported a 91% increase in productivity and a newfound clarity in their life direction. Here's the story. Like many, they struggled with conflicting thoughts and feelings about their goals. After engaging with our guide, they learned to balance their rational thinking with emotional insight, leading to breakthroughs they never thought possible. And what are the guarantees? We stand by our guide with a 100% satisfaction guarantee. If you don't see progress within 30 days, we'll refund your purchase. No questions asked. Why now? The longer you wait, the longer your dreams remain out of reach. Don't let this opportunity pass you by. Take action today and start your journey toward personal growth and achievement. What do you have to lose? Nothing but your limitations. Join the ranks of those who have discovered their potential through our mental duality guide. Act now and unlock the door to your future.
Interesting.
And with those on board, we make the difference. We make up the deficit of the foods that have been grown in ways that don't support your health. I would say it this way. These days, nutritional supplementation is no longer optional because the foods that you buy in a grocery store are deficient, period.
That's a necessity.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are some key supplements that you think we should always have as a part of our diet?
Well, the food is grown too fast on soils that have been not replenished, so they're low in minerals. So you need to have a mineral supplementation. You need magnesium and potassium for sure. Trace minerals are required. Oh, what are they? Copper, zinc, iron, iodine. Those things are deficient in the foods. Selenium is another one. Um, at minimum, multi-mineral, multivitamin, multi-aminos. However, the one a day sort of thing that's sold in the mainstream or promoted in the mainstream, that's actually money wasted, because once you compress the requirement into something as small as this, you have thrown away too much of the required stuff. So you're buying something that makes you feel like you're doing the right thing, but you're not.
Sure.
So don't fall in for the one a day. That's not where it's hiding.
Yeah. Are we better off
I,
consuming
for
our
example,
vitamins? Like through avocados being so rich in B vitamins, is it better to just kind of consume it that way? Is that
well, I may sound like I'm self-promoting, but this sort of the superfood blends that you need to take 3-4 teaspoons, which is the equivalent of something like, say, 24 capsules, right? That's the volume of stuff that you need to take.
okay?
Um, then you'd be okay.
Hmm. So where can we find those? Where can we find this brand?
The Life Enthusiast, the business that I have,
Hmm.
life-enthusiast.com. Come see.
Yeah,
Superfoods.
that's
Yeah.
awesome. What are certain key ingredients too that you think that are a part of your superfoods that really make them stand out?
Well, you need to start with rich um, mineralization. So we put that in. The vitamins are required. We make special form of vitamins where we take the vitamins and we feed them to a nutritional yeast, and the yeast eats that and turns them into living things. So we have a living magnesium and living vitamin B2 and so on. So they are much more absorbable when they're in that form. And the most important parts are all the pigments, the proanthocyanidins, and all the colors. You hear it in the stories. Eat the rainbow, get the red things, blue things, yellow things, brown things. Make sure that you have this rich profile, and that's what brings in the antioxidants into the body, which that's the stuff that slows down aging.
Yeah, the higher the antioxidants
So
are.
what are the important ingredients? Oh yeah, you asked it differently. Well, so that would be, we have things that are rich in chlorophyll, rich in enzymes. Enzymes are the most important things. The only way you get enzymes is through raw, uncooked things. Because by heating things past 120 degree Fahrenheit, you're breaking the enzymes.
Okay.
So it's either you're a raw foodist or you at least supplement these raw things that have been made in a way that will supplement the enzymes. A digestive enzyme is an awesome thing to have, especially for anyone who's eating cooked food.
I love that you speak about raw
Mhm.
because I just typically have always, anytime I've ever gotten a cold, the flu, even when I had COVID, I stopped eating anything that was processed meat, dairy, all of that. I cut all of that out of my diet and I will just eat raw at that moment. And nothing seems to penetrate or stay in my system for very long when I do that.
Mhm.
And I've told many people, I was like, if you're getting sick, cut everything out. Don't do chicken noodle soup. It's everything wrong that's in there. I was like, just eat out of the earth, like just eat organic and just eat raw and like eat a lot of citrus because that's what I would consume was like more citrus, lots of leafy greens, and within a 24 to 48 hour, that's usually as long as it would take for me to get whatever was in my system or attacking my system out of my system.
Yeah.
And but I that was just trial and error. Like I just played around with that. I felt like someone had mentioned about eating that and fasting. Like I'll do both kind of simultaneously, and the fasting also helps a great deal because it just kind of shuts down everything. And then when I do put in the nutrition, it's a good nutrition.
I'm so glad you mentioned fasting. Many times the problem isn't additive, it's subtractive.
Mm,
Subtractive, meaning this, you need to do less, not more. And
yes.
a flu is the body's attempt to dump toxic things that have accumulated and have not been taken out of the body. It's essentially a crisis of cleansing.
Yeah.
And so going on water and fast, or just a fruit juice and fast, is the best thing you can do because you will speed up the flushing of the toxins and let them come out of the body.
Yeah.
But important part is this: genetics play an important role. And depending on your ancestry, the farther away from the equator, the shorter the summers, the longer the winters, and the closer to equator, you have essentially a growing season year long. So if your ancestors are from Norway, 60 degrees north, you have a 90-day growing season. So your ancestors ate a lot of stored proteins. They would dry cod and they would catch salmon and they would hunt reindeer and eat a lot of meat stuff. And an extreme example of it would be somebody called Eskimo. They would they would eat raw seal meat and whale blubber uncooked. There's no wood, there's no fire in where they live. They would just eat it raw, period. Whereas if you're near the tropics, you have fresh fruit and vegetables year round. There's no lack of that. So it's really easy to be a vegetarian if your ancestry is from the subtropic. Whereas if you are from higher latitudes, you will probably be a better suited to the
Yeah.
at least mix, if not heavily protein rich foods.
Sure. My
So there are these genetic differences, and we actually that's what we work with in the metabolic typing,
mhm.
is we have these tools that help people understand. In America, we now have this melting pot where a Cherokee grandmother is mating with a Norwegian grandfather, and we have Asians and Europeans and all of that, and Africans mixing together. Well, you just don't know what you're going to get because genetically it's a melting pot.
Sure.
So you need to ask the body to tell you what it needs. And there are these two main types. One type is alkalized by fats. The other type is alkalized by carbohydrates. And the opposite of alkalizing is acidifying. So you reverse that.
Mhm.
And if you get overly acidified, you'll get a flu and you'll be unsettled and anxious and impatient, that sort of thing. And if you over alkalize, you'll be procrastinating and you'll be lazy and you will possibly be depressed if you overdo
Interesting.
it.
Okay, so balance is key, right?
Do it while doing the right thing for your body. And
Yeah,
yes, finding your balance, which is not my balance, right?
right.
My main genetic line is from Sweden. Well, I need to be eating more like the Swedish person. You
Hmm.
look like your ancestry is somewhere Asia,
South
right?
America. South America.
South America.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, but where did they come from?
Asia, most
That's
likely.
what
Yeah,
yeah, right?
yeah.
Yeah. So you need to be eating to the climate
Hmm.
that gave rise to your ancestors. Like before the Industrial Revolution,
Hmm.
say like 1200 AD,
Hmm.
most people stayed in one place and they ate eats the food that's locally available. So if you have somebody from North Africa, a Bedouin oasis, they will be eating dates, figs, pomegranates, camel milk, and it's starch, 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 starch. No problem. They will be adapted to that.
Mhm.
But if you have somebody, say in Eastern Europe, it's going to be, um, what will they do? Well, some grains, vegetables in the summer, fruit in the fall. Uh, Once a week, they may kill the chicken. And
Mhm.
in the winter, when it's cold, they'll butcher the pig.
Mhm.
So it's a very different diet. And you need to be considering all of that.
Is there a
Of course,
specific
not
diet?
everybody is an Italian farm.
Yeah.
Not everybody is an Italian farmer, which is what America is eating now. The pizza, lasagna, and calzone. That's a fairly narrow box of northern Italy.
Sure. Is
Yeah.
there a specific diet that you highly recommend? Like, is there like, I've heard Mediterranean diets kind of like a great diet to just adapt. I generally love Mediterranean food, so it doesn't bother me, but I'm just curious to know what your insight is when it comes to that.
Well, so the most cultures that we knew were either coastal, fishing, or inland, which was hunting, or inland, agriculture. And then I mentioned the how far away from the equator. Did you have easy access to food year round, or did you need to eat a lot of protein because that's how you would survive?
Yeah.
So there is not one size fits all at all. There isn't one thing like that. The other thing is, of course, our endocrine dominances. We have different body types. We have thyroid, adrenal, pituitary, and ovarian dominant. And depending on that, you will be gaining weight or losing weight in a very different manner. And so you need to find the balance between what makes you emotionally or physiologically balanced, and does it cause you to gain weight or lose weight? So for example, for myself, I'm the type that has a bit of a challenging situation where, for me, starches are calming, but they also push me to gain weight. So I have a choice between too calm and happy, but gaining weight, or just walking the edge of staying slim and managing my emotions, right? So it's anyway, that's what the metabolic typing coaching is all about, where we help people understand how their genetics are shaping their relationship with food. Yeah.
Um, when you say metabolic
Okay,
type,
so let me answer that. Yeah, let me answer your question.
yeah.
The one is Mediterranean diet good?
Hmm.
Well, yeah, it's good for people who came from there.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Um, when you are doing the metabolic typing, are you really just kind of looking at the ancestral heritage and then to make that analysis, or how else are you looking at this?
Yeah. Well, that's what causes it, but we actually ask the person to tell us what happens. So we tell you or ask you what happens when you eat a high protein breakfast. That or what happens when you drink a lot of alcohol, or what happens when you this and that. I mean, some people do drink alcohol. I don't recommend it. But questions like that. So it's the physiological responses to inputs that we're looking for. We have a sheet that's called DCR, Daily Check Record, and on it we ask you questions. After this meal, were you satiated or were you craving things? After this meal, were you hyper or were you nervous or were you jittery or were you sedated? Were you overly quiet? Were you unable to think clearly? Questions like that. All of that is driven by dysregulating food responses. A lot of depression or anxiety is actually a food-related problem,
Interesting.
food choice related problem.
Yeah, I think our diet definitely impacts anxiety. I see it with a lot of clients that I work with. And I see where, they may have certain things that are causing these spikes in there, like that they're
Yep.
consuming or, that's causing this up and down. And I think alcohol does a lot more bad than it does good, in terms of like body functions as well as brain
Right.
function.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
with alcohol, we're able to metabolize about 1.5 ounces a day. So a glass of wine, no big deal. The second one is causing you a problem. The third one is causing you a serious issue. And so just think about that, right?
yeah.
Moderation is a decent thing.
And it does slow down your metabolism as well, right?
Well, so depending on which type you are, if
Mhm.
you're the oxidizer, it makes you acidic, drives you toward anxiety, nervousness, wakefulness, unpleasantness. People who get acidic are very impatient and confrontational. Whereas if you're the autonomic, alcohol makes you more sedated. You'll end up oversharing. And if you keep drinking, you'll be crying about problems and falling asleep after.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It's interesting how that impacts the body, the way that you've described it. For me, like I always thought it was the brain is the prefrontal cortex that it kind of shuts down, and that's what kind of causes those types of reactions within humans. Um,
Well, so you're describing the autonomic nervous system reaction. When you go into the autonomic nervous system has two branches,
mhm,
sympathetic, parasympathetic, fight or flight, rest and repair.
sure.
So when you're in the fight or flight mode, the frontal cortex is shut off. You're going into your back brain. You're going straight on instinct. Can't think your way out of a situation. You
Mhm,
are just acting on instant response,
mhm,
or more like reaction rather than response.
mhm.
So that's the acidity side.
Oh,
So
so the
if you if
acidity is what shuts down the prefrontal cortex.
Mhm. Yep.
Got it. Okay. Very fascinating. Um, what are I have so many questions.
Sure, try one.
What else aside from like the substance of like alcohol, what are certain things like we hear about coffee and caffeine, and I have to tell you I do love coffee, but is it bad? Does it do more bad? Does it do more good? What are your thoughts on coffee?
Right. Well, the endocrine dominance
Mhm.
tells you that if you're the thyroid type, you will be more sensitive to stimulants. If you're the adrenal type, you will not. And so it's sort of like how do I best describe it? Like we all have all the different glands, but some of them are more dominant than others. So depending which you are, you will have either easier time or harder time with it. So for me, I can handle coffee. I love the smell of it. I love the taste of it, but it makes me jittery because I'm the thyroid type.
Okay.
So I can
And
handle
I
one
don't
cup,
get
but
jittery
not
from it.
two.
Okay. I've always wondered about that because I love coffee, but it doesn't make me jittery. It doesn't make me anxious. I don't have that type of response every time I drink it, but I see some people do.
Mhm. And that's the genetic differences that will drive them.
Yeah, I can consume quite a bit of coffee and remain insanely calm and like
And so
not.
you're the type who gets to enjoy it. I'm the type who gets to smell it. I love the smell of it. I mean, to me, mocha is the best flavor in the world as
Yeah,
taste-wise, right?
yeah. That's
Yeah.
interesting. Okay, so let's talk about teas. Are there certain teas like, we have,
Okay. Well, the stimulants, right?
yeah.
A 1 cup of coffee is the equivalent of 3 cups of black tea or 9 cups of green tea in
in-
stimulation.
Okay.
So green tea is the least stimulating of the lot. And
Okay.
then, of course, then there are the herbal teas, and you get to choose what you want to do. Oh my Lord, that the whole herbology in your hand, right? Do you want to drink some verbena tea today, or do you want to? Yeah, herbalists have formulated these things like sleepy time, or the thyroid type. will do exceedingly well on red leaf raspberry tea because it will, red raspberry leaf, gosh, these adjectives, it will stimulate the hormones just right.
Interesting. I do love that tea too. Yeah.
You know, the adrenal type will do great on a green parsley tea, for example.
Okay. Do you recommend like incorporating more teas into like your diet? Is tea something that you kind of stand behind a little bit?
Are we talking herbal teas or black teas?
Herbal teas. I think black
Yeah,
tea is probably like the least nutritional, correct? Am I
yeah,
wrong?
it's a stimulant.
Okay.
You know, okay, the great teas are yerba mate, right? And matcha tea. It's awesome. They're way better than the other stimulating teas.
Okay.
Herbal teas in general, it's a great idea. Just make sure that you're taking the ones that work for you, right? Like for me, for example, chamomile licorice is just the right thing because I'm already stimulated enough. I need calming,
Right.
whereas somebody else may need the opposite. Yeah, just find the thing that works for you. Biological individuality always has the upper hand.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, what are your future goals going forward?
Well, when I started this, it was writing down that I want to improve the health of people by the millions. So depends how far I'll get. We'll see. But I definitely want to spread the message, which is one, understand your biological individuality. Two, vote with your wallet, make food choices that are ecological. And three, buy my superfoods because I need to make a living too.
Yes.
So that's the goals. I want to get that message out to the world.
How can people connect with you?
The website is called Life Enthusiast, life-enthusiast.com. We're there. We have a fine selection of foods and supplements that help people. There are many choices. Not everything is for everyone, depending on the biological individuality. And we will help clients. Our customer service is legendary. We help people understand what they need to do and why they need to do it. We work through education.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I am super excited to have you on the show today. So thank you for coming on and just sharing so much amazing insights on health and what we're putting into our bodies. I deeply appreciate it, and I'm sure the listeners will appreciate it as well. So
Thank you, Alia. It's been a pleasure.
thank you for joining me. Yeah, thank you.